In remote areas, disappearances usually follow an established pattern: exposure, injury, disorientation, or wildlife. Search and rescue teams learn these causes early in their careers. When someone vanishes, there are footprints, dropped equipment, broken branches, a clear direction of travel, or at least a point where evidence stops making sense. In Maddox County, the records do not follow that pattern. Official files show no violent crime, no credible suspects, and no confirmed fatalities. Yet several residents entered the forested region known locally as Gray Hollow and did not return. The incidents remain open, without resolution. Local authorities rarely comment on them publicly. Many details never appeared in news reports. The first recorded case in this sequence involved two residents of Richmond, 36-year-old Thomas Keller and 34-year-old Daniel Keller. According to relatives, the men left home on January 14, 2021, for a routine hunting trip. Weather conditions were stable. Both had experience in the area. Their vehicle, a gray Chevrolet Silverado, was equipped for winter travel. The Kellers last sent a mobile message on the morning of January 15th. The content was routine and did not indicate distress. When they failed to return on January 16th, family members attempted to call. The phones did not connect. January 17th, 0650. The Madison County Sheriff's Department received a missing persons report. A patrol unit was dispatched to Service Road 67, one of the main access points to Gray Hollow. At 0740, deputies located the Silverado parked at a pull-off near the tree line. The truck was not damaged. Doors were unlocked. Keys remained in the ignition. One jacket was folded on the back seat. Personal documents and licenses were found in the center console. A thermos contained warm liquid, indicating the men had not been away from the vehicle for long. Search and rescue teams began ground operations at 09:10. Temperatures were recorded at -4 Celsius. Visibility was clear. Snow coverage was shallow, but sufficient to preserve tracks. Investigators documented a continuous line of boot prints belonging to both men, leading toward the creek bed approximately 200 meters from the vehicle. From that point, the trail changed. Some sections of the creek were frozen, others open. Boot prints continued briefly along the edge, then became inconsistent. Barefoot impressions were noted in a cluster roughly 30 meters beyond the last confirmed boot marks. The impressions were deep, as though created by a heavy adult male, but larger than typical foot dimensions. Several prints displayed clear toe separation. After a short distance, the trail stopped on an undisturbed stretch of snow without transitioning to rock, brush, or water. K9 units were introduced at 11:42. The dogs followed the scent to the same stopping point and could not proceed further. No blood traces, clothing fragments, or signs of a fall were recorded. On the afternoon of January 17th, search teams located the remains of a small campfire. The wood was partially burned, but extinguished before full combustion. A glove matching one of the brothers was found nearby. No additional personal effects were located. January 18th operations expanded to cover the creek and deeper timber. Dive teams inspected underwater cavities and did not locate bodies or equipment. Aerial scans showed no shelter sites, heat signatures, or movement. At 13:15, vehicle diagnostics confirmed that the Silverado engine and electrical system were functioning normally. There were no signs of mechanical failure. The truck started immediately under test conditions. Fuel level was sufficient. By 18:20, search teams noted that the snow around the original boot and barefoot impressions appeared smoothed, as though freshly fallen. Meteorological records confirmed no precipitation during that window. No wind strong enough to redistribute snow was recorded. After 3 days, with no physical recovery and no established direction of travel, the search was scaled down. The case remained open. No suspects were identified. No plausible explanation was recorded in the official summary. Nothing else was found belonging to the Keller brothers. Following the Keller disappearance, Gray Hollow did not receive formal warnings or restricted access. The absence of conclusive evidence prevented classification as a criminal investigation. Official communication described the incident as an unresolved missing persons case, consistent with accidental loss in difficult terrain. However, internal logs from the Sheriff's Department indicate repeated unofficial patrols along Service Road 67 in the weeks that followed. These visits were not included in regular shift reports and appeared to be discretionary actions by individual deputies. Patrol camera data confirms multiple night stops near the same pull-off where the Silverado was found. On February 4, 2021, a wildlife research team from the State University placed motion-triggered counters along the northern ridge. Their study was unrelated to the missing persons report. The objective was to track winter travel patterns of deer and elk. 3 units recorded normal activity. One device, located closest to Gray Hollow, registered almost no movement over a 9-day period. The malfunction appeared inconsistent. The device recorded manual tests at close range with accurate timestamps. At a distance of approximately 3 meters, the sensor failed to detect movement from personnel standing in direct line of sight. Power levels and internal temperatures were normal. No obstruction of the lens was noted. The team replaced the device with a second unit. The second unit produced the same result. On February 12th, 2 hikers unrelated to the research project reported an unusual auditory experience while crossing a section of the creek bed. According to their statement, ambient noise levels appeared reduced in a specific area approximately 5 minutes' walk from the service road. They reported hearing no wind, birds, or running water. Both left the area without continuing the hike. Their account was provided informally to a deputy several days later and not recorded in the official incident system. On February 21st, a retired firefighter contacted the sheriff directly. He reported seeing a stationary figure on the shoulder near the pull-off at approximately 19:30. Distance was estimated at less than 20 meters. The witness attempted verbal contact, received no response, and maneuvered his vehicle to provide light. The figure was no longer visible. Snow coverage was intact, with no measurable prints or disturbance. The firefighter declined to file a written statement. During routine vehicle maintenance on March 2nd, a specialist inspected the impounded Silverado. He reviewed battery logs from the date of disappearance and observed a rapid voltage drop consistent with sudden power drain, followed by immediate stabilization. No corrosion or wiring issues were found. The battery tested within normal parameters. The specialist stated that the recorded pattern did not match typical gradual discharge or cold weather failure. He did not provide a formal explanation and did not request follow-up. This information did not result in reopening active search operations. The sheriff's office classified the case as inactive pending new evidence. Patrols on Service Road 67 continued on an informal basis. Between March and April, small unverified reports circulated among residents. None were officially filed. Examples included claims of vehicle headlights dimming near the creek, difficulty maintaining radio contact in a limited section of road, perceived movement but no visible source, silence or sudden absence of ambient sound. No photographs, recordings, or measurable data accompanied these accounts. By the beginning of May, the Sheriff's Department logged no additional missing persons connected to Gray Hollow. The case remained unsolved. No suspects, no confirmed direction of travel, and no recovery of clothing, tools, or remains. At this stage, the incident appeared isolated. But internal notes indicate growing concern about the pattern of equipment interference and sensory reports near the same location where the brothers were last tracked. The investigation continued in a passive state until the next confirmed case. The second confirmed case occurred 6 months after the Keller incident. On July 19, 2021, 2 hikers from Idaho used Service Road 67 to access the main trail network. Weather conditions were stable. Visibility was clear. The hikers were unfamiliar with local history and unaware of the January disappearance. At 17:12, they returned to town and entered a general store. According to the clerk, both individuals appeared unsettled and asked if the forest contained restricted zones. When the clerk requested clarification, They declined to elaborate. Later that evening, one hiker reported to a deputy that the forest felt abnormally quiet, specifically near the creek bend. The statement referenced the absence of wind, insects, and ambient noise. No claim of seeing a person, animal, or structure was made. The hikers did not request follow-up and left town the next morning. On August 3rd, a county resident driving the frontage road reported a stalled vehicle near the same pull-off where the Silverado had been located. A deputy arrived at 2146 and found a pickup idling with headlights on. The driver remained inside, unresponsive to verbal contact until the deputy opened the door. The driver stated that he stopped due to seeing a person on the shoulder near the tree line. He described the figure as stationary and upright. He attempted to reverse, but believed the vehicle did not respond to gear input, though the engine continued to run. The deputy examined the shoulder. Snow and gravel showed no footprints. Vegetation was undisturbed. The driver did not appear intoxicated and refused further medical evaluation. No damage to the truck was found. The report lists possible visual misinterpretation as primary explanation. The driver arranged to retrieve the vehicle during daylight hours. On August 17th, a rancher in the vicinity documented linear depressions in fresh snow across an open pasture. The depressions formed a straight, continuous line without individual footprints or hoof marks. They ended abruptly at the tree line. The rancher deleted the photographs the same evening. He later stated he did not wish to keep them. On August 28th, a pipeline technician inspected a downed monitoring line near the creek. During the procedure, he reported hearing 3 slow knocks against metal, spaced evenly. Inspection of the pipe showed no mechanical cause. The technician completed his task, reported the sound informally to his supervisor, and did not request investigation. Internal logs from early September show an increase in patrol time along the frontage road and pull-off area. Although there were no new missing persons, deputies noted equipment irregularities. Several units recorded temporary radio failure within a narrow segment of roadway. In each instance, communication resumed after moving 20-40 meters. On September 14th, a Game and Fish Department camera positioned near the creek recorded a 22-second blackout at Oro 243. Audio captured 3 distinct knocks against the camera housing. The pattern matched the technician's earlier account. When the blackout cleared, the camera view showed no subjects in frame. Wildlife activity returned to baseline immediately after. The camera was inspected. Lens and sensor were intact. Battery level was normal. The recording was preserved but not released publicly. No agency requested analysis. From September through October, local residents expressed informal concern about the area. None filed reports. Observations included absence of small wildlife near the creek, headlights dimming when passing the pull-off, silence without wind or insects, maintained perception of being watched. These statements were recorded only as unofficial notes. No law enforcement action was taken. At this stage, no agencies classified the location as hazardous. In official files, the Keller case remained unresolved and isolated. In departmental notes, Gray Hollow appeared repeatedly. The next verified disappearance took place on October 29, 2021. The subject was a part-time logger named Ryan Whitaker, age 31, resident of Maddox County. He was known in the area, employed seasonally, and familiar with the forest terrain surrounding Gray Hollow. According to time records from his employer, Whitaker ended his shift at 1610 and departed alone in a company-owned pickup to retrieve chains left near a storage shed on the service road. At 1822, the company dispatcher attempted to reach him regarding fuel inventory. His phone rang without answer. A second call at 1837 also received no response. At 2110, when Whitaker failed to return the vehicle, his supervisor contacted the sheriff's department. A deputy located the truck at 2154. The vehicle was parked parallel to the service road, facing north. Headlights were off, engine off, keys in ignition, driver's door closed, passenger door closed, fuel level sufficient. Hand tools remained in the truck bed. A work glove was located on the ground near the driver's side, palm facing upward. There were no tire marks indicating sudden braking or swerving. Boot prints matching Whitaker's known footwear led from the driver's side door toward the tree line. The prints were straight and evenly spaced, showing no sign of running or struggle. They continued for approximately 70 meters and ended at a patch of open ground where grass remained flattened by recent frost. There were no further impressions. Deputies conducted a standard call-out. No response. Flashlight grids revealed no movement. A K9 unit arrived at 2240 and tracked scent to the same termination point. The dog circled repeatedly without establishing a direction of travel. No alternative trails were located. At 2318, one deputy reported an unusual drop in radio signal while attempting to contact dispatch. The issue persisted only within a limited radius and resolved once the deputy moved back toward the vehicle. Patrol camera footage captured no thermal signatures or wildlife activity during the incident. The following morning, search and rescue teams expanded the grid to a 2.5-kilometer radius. No signs of Whitaker were found. No clothing, equipment, disturbed vegetation, drag marks, or scent indicated further movement. The storage shed, Whitaker's intended destination, was inspected. The metal latch was secured. No forced entry. Frost was noted along the inside of the door frame despite ambient temperatures above freezing. Digital thermometers recorded a localized drop of 14 degrees Celsius inside the shed for a brief duration. No mechanical or environmental cause was identified. The reading was logged, and the thermometer was recalibrated. It continued functioning normally. On October 31st, a state trooper surveying the frontage road reported intermittent dimming of the cruiser's headlights while passing the creek turnout. The dashboard did not register electrical faults. Voltage readings remained normal. The event lasted less than 3 seconds. The Whitaker disappearance was classified as missing with unknown cause. Toxicology and medical history offered no contributing factors. No signs of intentional self-harm or flight were established. The case remained open without suspect activity or criminal leads. By early November, Gray Hollow had 2 unlocated individuals within a 10-month period. No bodies, clothing, electronic devices, or weapons were recovered. Timber crews adjusted routes away from the hollow voluntarily. The sheriff's office, while not issuing a public advisory, increased patrol frequency during night hours. Unofficial statements from deputies mentioned changes in ambient noise near the creek sector, specifically sudden absence of environmental sound for short durations. These observations did not enter the official case file. No confirmed sightings, remains, or credible leads emerged in the weeks following Whitaker's disappearance. The sheriff's department continued to list both cases as unresolved, without evidence of foul play and without evidence of natural fatality. In public records, Gray Hollow remained an open-access forested area with no safety restrictions. Between November 2021 and February 2022, no additional residents were officially reported missing in relation to Gray Hollow. However, several minor incidents were logged by deputies during routine patrols. None were classified as criminal events. Each was marked as no further action. On November 14th, Deputy Lang recorded an equipment malfunction while stationary near the creek turnout at Oro 211. His cruiser dash camera timestamp froze for 12 seconds before resuming normal function. The video displayed no lapse, only a missing segment of recorded time. Engine remained running. Electrical diagnostics later showed no fault. During the same month, a power company technician inspected a transformer located near the service corridor. He reported a thin layer of frost covering the exterior casing, despite ambient temperatures above freezing. The frost dissipated within minutes. Internal temperatures recorded by the transformer's sensor remained stable. The technician filed a standard maintenance report without a request for further inspection. On December 3rd, a teacher commuting before sunrise saw a stationary figure near the tree line. She reported that the headlights of her vehicle reduced in brightness when pointed directly at the figure. The light returned to full intensity after she turned away. Upon returning her gaze, the area appeared empty. Snow showed no footprints. She did not call dispatch. Her account was relayed informally to a deputy 2 days later, but not entered into the system. Throughout December, residents near the western pasture reported hearing metallic tapping at irregular intervals during nighttime hours. Witness descriptions were consistent. 3 taps, spaced evenly, originating from unknown direction. Most dismissed the sound as equipment settling in cold weather. No property damage or structural faults were discovered. January 9, 2022. A supply delivery driver reported a brief power drop affecting his headlights and dashboard while passing the frontage road segment bordering Gray Hollow. The vehicle did not stall. Diagnostic check later showed no malfunction. The driver noted a still atmosphere with no wind or animal movement during the event. No further report was made. January 24, 2022. A state wildlife camera installed near the frozen section of the creek logged a 7-second blackout. The recording resumed without visual distortion. Ambient audio during blackout captured no snow movement or rustling. Investigators noted that the device maintained internal power and temperature control, eliminating typical cold weather failure. The memory card registered the blackout as uninterrupted footage with missing frames rather than a reset. On February 2nd, a deputy patrolling Service Road 67 at 0314 recorded a sudden loss of radio communication while attempting to check in with dispatch. The failure occurred only within a narrow area of the road. After reversing approximately 30 meters, communication restored. The deputy marked the issue as intermittent terrain interference. Communications technicians later tested the same location, but did not reproduce the problem. Throughout this period, the Sheriff's Department did not raise public concern, citing insufficient evidence to justify warnings or access restrictions. The Keller and Whitaker cases remained open, listed as unresolved missing persons with unknown cause. No new bodies, clothing, or personal effects were discovered. Despite no confirmed disappearances for nearly 4 months, deputy shift logs show sustained patrol presence along Gray Hollow's perimeter. Many of these entries appear as area sweep, road check, or status secure, without describing specific purpose. The absence of new incidents did not reduce internal attention. Several deputies carried personal recording devices during night patrols, though none provided documented anomalies beyond previously noted interference. In late February, a third disappearance occurred within 1 mile of the same service road. The third confirmed disappearance took place on February 27, 2022. The subject was Harold Price, 63, a retired machinist who routinely walked a fixed 5-kilometer route along County Road 12 near the Gray Hollow boundary. Neighbors reported seeing him begin his walk shortly before sunset, wearing a reflective vest and carrying a small flashlight. At 1942, Price's wife called the non-emergency line to report that he had not returned. She stated this was unusual, as he followed the same schedule for several years. Deputies were dispatched at 1958. At 2016, the patrol unit located the subject's footprints on the shoulder of County Road 12. The prints were clean and well-defined in thin snow, spaced evenly, showing no indication of running or struggle. The prints proceeded for approximately 230 meters, then stopped abruptly. There was no transition to the roadway, ditch, or tree line. Snow beyond the final print was undisturbed. No secondary tracks, drag marks, or indentation were observed. Deputies used high-powered flashlights to scan the immediate area. No animals or persons were visible. Search and rescue teams arrived shortly after 21 Sioux. A K-9 unit tracked Price's scent across the shoulder and lost it at the same termination point as the footprints. The dog attempted to reacquire the trail outward in expanding circles and was unsuccessful. No personal items such as phone, hat, or flashlight were found. Between 22:30 and 01:15, teams conducted swept-line search patterns covering both sides of the road. No clothing, broken ice, or signs of a fall were detected. The ditch was shallow. No water hazards were present. By 04 August, operations were suspended due to low visibility. At sunrise, deputies re-examined the final footprint. Ambient temperature recorded at -9°C. Snow structure surrounding the print appeared partially melted and refrozen, despite consistent weather conditions overnight. No external heat source was located. The footprint edges had softened, and the surrounding snow surface appeared smoother than the previous evening. Cell data showed Price's phone stopped transmitting at 1923. No pings indicated travel outside the immediate area. The device was not recovered. During the morning search, one team member reported hearing 3 soft impacts on a metal fence bordering an adjacent pasture. The fence was visually inspected. Frost marks on the top rail showed a distinct smudging pattern in 5 linear streaks. Temperature of the metal rail registered 6°C below ambient air. No equipment or environmental explanation was documented. By 1420, search teams expanded coverage to 2 kilometers. Ground composition, frozen soil, snow patches, and dormant grass offered clear visibility of disturbances. No further tracks or signs of movement were found. At 1710, a deputy documented temporary loss of radio signal while standing within 15 meters of the final footprint. When he stepped backward toward the roadway, communication resumed. A communications technician later tested the same area without reproducing the failure. No shielding structures, power lines, or topographic anomalies explained the interference. Price's disappearance was listed as unresolved. No evidence indicated voluntary departure. No medical or psychological conditions suggested disorientation or wandering. Weather was cold, but not severe. No predators or wildlife activity were reported. This case marked the 3rd missing person within a 13-month span inside the same geographic corridor, with similar termination of tracks and absence of remains. Public statements did not connect the events. Residents near County Road 12 increased the use of exterior lighting, though they did not formally report threats or sightings. Deputies continued patrols along the corridor, with emphasis on night hours. No suspects, no bodies, and no physical evidence emerged. Following the disappearance of Harold Price, the Sheriff's Department conducted additional patrols along County Road 12, Service Road 67, and the Creek Corridor, leading into Gray Hollow. These patrols remained unofficial and did not result in public advisories. The department classified them as precautionary due to the absence of confirmed criminal activity. Between March and April 2022, deputies documented a recurring pattern of equipment irregularities inside a limited geographic boundary. The issues were minor, brief, and inconsistent, preventing formal classification as electrical malfunction. On March 8th, at 02:57, a patrol unit reported a 3-second dimming of headlights while idling near the creek turnout. The battery level and alternator output remained normal. The dash readout did not show fault codes. The headlights returned to full brightness without driver input. On March 14th at 01:11, a deputy observed frost forming on the inside of the front passenger window. The interior temperature registered above freezing. The frost dissipated in less than 1 minute. No moisture was found on the glass afterwards. The patrol log listed the event as visual irregularity. On March 20th, a communications test was performed along the frontage road to determine whether radio interference was topographic. 2 technicians drove a marked truck through the area while maintaining open microphone with dispatch. Audio remained stable until the vehicle entered a 60-meter stretch near the creek. The signal cut for 4 seconds without static or distortion and returned abruptly. The technicians repeated the test twice, with interference occurring in the same location each time. They did not identify a cause. The final report referred to isolated signal failure, likely related to atmospheric conditions. In early April, the sheriff received a report from a livestock handler whose dog refused to approach the pasture bordering the hollow. The dog remained at the edge of the field and displayed signs of distress, including raised hackles and reluctance to move forward. The handler examined the field and located no predators, traps, or contaminants. The report was filed informally and not entered into the incident database. On April 18th, a pair of hunters traveling near the service road at dusk claimed to see a tall shape standing between two trees. The description did not specify clothing, movement, or identifiable features. Both men reported that the shape remained motionless as they passed. When they illuminated the area with a flashlight, the shape was no longer visible. Snow beneath the trees was undisturbed. They recorded the sighting in a handwritten log, but did not contact law enforcement. The account reached deputies through a third party several weeks later. Throughout April, no additional missing persons were reported. Nonetheless, search teams reviewed the Keller and Price case files and noted the similarity in termination of tracks, absence of personal effects, and failure of dogs to continue a scent trail. Investigators expanded the search radius maps and calculated a possible zone of disappearance within a 1.8-kilometer corridor between County Road 12 and Service Road 67. Internal notes referenced a functional boundary where equipment issues, silence, and track termination repeatedly occurred. No scientific explanation was added. The notes were not included in the official case summaries. On May 2nd, a Game and Fish Department employee conducting routine surveys near the creek reported a sudden cessation of ambient sound lasting approximately 15 seconds. During that time, he noted that wind stopped and tree movement ceased. When normal sound returned, he observed no wildlife or human presence. His equipment showed no malfunction. The incident was noted only in his field book. By mid-May, Gray Hollow had 3 unresolved disappearances with consistent characteristics and no physical evidence beyond footprints ending abruptly. No bodies, clothing, electronics, or tools were recovered. The sheriff's department continued silent patrols without issuing public warnings. Officially, the cases remained classified as missing with unknown cause. On June 11, 2022, a maintenance worker for the County Transportation Department documented an unusual temperature change near the storage shed adjacent to Service Road 67. The shed was routinely checked for equipment inventory. The worker recorded an ambient outside temperature of 13 degrees Celsius. Upon opening the shed door, a thermal reader registered 0 degrees along the upper portion of the door frame. The reading reverted to ambient after 60 seconds. Tools inside the shed were dry and undisturbed. The worker reported the anomaly as a sensor error and did not request further inspection. 2 days later, a bus driver completing a late route observed a stationary figure near the edge of a clearing at approximately 2318. The driver described seeing a tall person facing the direction of the bus. Headlights dimmed while aimed toward the figure and returned to full brightness when angled away. When the driver turned back again, the figure was no longer visible. Snow was present in patches, but showed no signs of footprints. The bus camera recorded clear video until the moment headlights dimmed, at which point a 4-second segment displayed static. The camera resumed normal function immediately. The driver reported the incident to a supervisor. No investigation followed. On June 19th, a power outage occurred along the western grid, affecting 11 homes. Utility logs attributed the event to a sudden voltage drop, not caused by line failure or transformer damage. During restoration efforts, a technician noticed a thin coating of frost along a steel fence section near the service corridor. Frost remained for several minutes, despite air temperature remaining above freezing. When touched, the frost melted instantly. The technician recorded no further anomalies. At the end of June, a rancher reported hearing 3 distinct knocks against the wooden wall of his barn at 0230. The sound was evenly spaced, with no wind activity. He inspected the barn and found no animals inside. Exterior snow remained smooth. A thin streak of frost was observed near the doorframe. The rancher did not contact authorities until 2 days later during an unrelated conversation with a deputy. The details were noted informally, but not filed. On July 5th, a deputy patrolling the frontage road recorded a temporary malfunction in the cruiser's onboard computer. For approximately 9 seconds, the GPS readout froze, and the system clock stalled. Engine and electrical components continued operating. The event was time-stamped and forwarded to fleet maintenance. Technicians could not reproduce the failure under test conditions. No wiring or software issues were identified. Later in July, a homeowner near County Road 12 reported finding frost on the interior of her kitchen window at dawn. Outdoor temperatures remained above 5 degrees Celsius overnight. The frost pattern consisted of 5 vertical streaks approximately identical in length and spacing. The surface was dry once melted. There were no drafts or condensation issues in the residence. The homeowner mentioned the incident to neighbors, but not to law enforcement. Between July and August, 3 drive-by reports from residents indicated occasional dimming of headlights near the creek turnout. None of the drivers contacted dispatch at the time. Informal accounts consistent with these reports circulated locally, involving brief flickers in vehicle lighting and temporary radio interference. No official complaints were filed. Despite recurring anomalies, there were no new disappearances during this interval. Search and rescue officials reviewed the Keller, Whitaker, and Price cases to determine whether the events could be attributed to terrain hazards, concealed bodies of water, or underground fissures. Geological surveys found no sinkholes, unstable ground, or abandoned mine shafts within the disappearance radius. Reports continued to point toward the same geographic pattern: clean termination of tracks, absence of personal effects, and short-lived equipment failures. No documented evidence supported abduction, animal attack, or voluntary disappearance. The Sheriff's Department maintained regular patrols, but issued no public statements. On August 22, 2022, a county road inspector reported visual distortion while surveying pavement conditions near the frontage road. According to his written statement, the scene at the tree line appeared out of focus, as if heat shimmer were present, despite ambient temperatures below 10 degrees Celsius. The distortion lasted several seconds. When he attempted to photograph the area, the camera failed to capture the image and displayed a blank preview screen. The device resumed normal operation after he walked back toward his vehicle. The inspector did not return to the tree line to retest. This incident was forwarded to the sheriff's office as part of a routine public safety report. It was marked as no action. On September 3rd at 03:12, a deputy conducting a scheduled patrol recorded a brief loss of sound inside the cruiser. The engine continued running. Radio static was absent. Ambient noise, including wind and insects, ceased completely for 6 seconds. When the deputy exited the vehicle to assess external conditions, sounds returned instantly. The event was captured on the patrol microphone as silent audio, with uninterrupted timestamp. The deputy filed the recording, but did not request further analysis. At 09:20 the same morning, a resident walking a dog near County Road 12 reported that the animal refused to continue toward the pasture-facing Gray Hollow. The dog displayed avoidance behavior and attempted to pull back toward the house. The resident observed no wildlife or human activity. Snow was undisturbed. The resident did not file an official report, stating there was no identifiable threat. On September 17th, a delivery driver experienced a temporary navigation failure in the same corridor. His GPS device recalculated repeatedly for 7 minutes before regaining normal function outside the hollow boundary. Weather conditions were clear. Road visibility was unobstructed. The driver later mentioned the malfunction to his employer, who added it to a delivery log. No follow-up occurred. In early October, a maintenance crew inspected a large metal gate bordering a livestock lot near the service road. Frost lines were visible on the gate surface in long branching patterns. Air temperature measured 8 degrees Celsius. Frost dissipated within minutes. The crew tested the gate for condensation or leaks. None were found. The event was recorded only as a maintenance note. On October 11th at 00:55, a deputy parked near the creek turnout observed a dim vertical form approximately 30 meters into the trees. The deputy described it as stationary and upright. The cruiser headlights flickered once when angled toward the object. The deputy changed position, but on second observation, nothing was visible. Snow showed no tracks. The account was entered as unconfirmed visual. On October 23rd, a state wildlife biologist reviewing audio from a remote trail counter noted a 2-minute gap in ambient noise, followed by a sudden return. The gap contained no wind, animals, or environmental sound. The data did not show device failure. The biologist forwarded the audio anomaly to a regional supervisor. No further evaluation was requested. Despite increased frequency of irregular observations, all 3 disappearance cases remained listed as missing with unknown cause. No additional bodies, clothing, or personal items had been recovered. Searches were not reactivated due to lack of new physical evidence. Residents living near the hollow reported turning on exterior lights more often. Some avoided the service road during late hours. These behavioral changes were informal and never recorded in official documents. In late October, the sheriff's office received a new report involving a potential missing person near the same corridor. On October 29, 2022, shortly after midnight, a call was placed to the county sheriff's office by a resident living along the western boundary of Gray Hollow. The caller stated that a person was standing in his front yard, near the fence line. According to the report, exterior motion lights had activated, and the homeowner observed a tall figure facing the house. He did not recognize the individual and described no movement or speech. Deputies arrived at E044. The motion lights remained on, but no individual was present in the yard. Snow in the yard showed no footprints, including along the fence where the figure had been reported. The homeowner remained inside and did not wish to provide a written statement. He reported that the temperature inside the house felt colder during the sighting, but returned to normal after the figure disappeared. Deputies observed no break-in, no signs of trespassing, and no damage to the property. At 01:12, while still on scene, a deputy documented a brief communication failure when attempting to report the clear status. The signal returned after a movement of roughly 10 meters toward the roadway. The interference lasted 3 seconds and did not repeat. On November 5th, a line worker performing routine inspection of electrical equipment near the service corridor noted frost forming along the inner surface of a steel access panel. Ambient temperature at ground level recorded 9 degrees Celsius. Frost receded within 1 minute. The worker used thermal imaging to confirm temperature variation, but found no cold source. The incident was logged as environmental anomaly, no follow-up. On November 11th, a security camera mounted outside a feedlot facing the hollow recorded a 9-second blackout with no software reset. Audio during the blackout contained no static or environmental noise. When the feed resumed, the camera displayed normal conditions. The recording was saved automatically, but not reviewed until a technician noticed the timestamp gap during routine data backup. The technician notified the property owner, who did not escalate the matter. Throughout November, isolated reports from residents described unusual silence along the frontage road during nighttime hours. These observations included lack of wind and no animal noise. Deputies responding to unrelated calls in the same area also noted periods of reduced environmental sound, though not consistently enough to classify as a pattern. No recordings captured these events. It was clean and undisturbed. Snow outside showed a single depression near the doorway, approximately circular and 30 centimeters across. There were no footprints leading away from the workshop. Search and rescue teams conducted a grid search throughout the night. No evidence of exit path, fall, or animal activity was found. K9 units tracked the individual's scent to the workshop entrance and lost it immediately outside the doorway. The dog did not indicate movement beyond the threshold. By morning, frost had formed along the top rail of the workshop fence in 5 narrow streaks. Touching the frost caused it to melt instantly, leaving the metal dry. Air temperature at the time was above freezing. The farmer's disappearance was classified as the 4th unresolved case within the same sector bordering Gray Hollow. No physical evidence led outward. No vehicle was removed. No electronic devices were recovered. There were no witnesses. The sheriff's department maintained that no connection between cases could be proven. Public advisories were not issued. After the fourth disappearance, internal communication records show a notable shift in deputy response patterns. Although no official press statements were issued, patrol schedules increased along the frontage road and service corridor. Units were frequently positioned near the creek turnout between Ursro and Ur4 These deployments were marked as routine night patrols, but did not reflect standard coverage for other rural areas of similar size. On December 3, 2022, a deputy reported a temperature drop inside the cruiser while parked near the hollow. The onboard thermometer registered a decline of 7 degrees Celsius over 24 seconds. The heater remained functional, and the engine maintained normal output. The deputy stepped outside to verify ambient temperature, which remained stable at ground level. By the time he returned to the vehicle, the cabin temperature returned to normal. Maintenance records found no fault with the climate control system. On December 10th, at 0109, a patrol vehicle twin camera system recorded a visual anomaly. The forward-facing camera captured a brief lens fogging event that lasted 2 seconds without external precipitation. The rear camera showed no fogging. Both units returned to full clarity immediately. The anomaly was not listed as equipment failure due to lack of repeat issues. 4 days later, a woman driving home observed a tall figure near a roadside sign at approximately 22:40. According to her account, the headlights dimmed while pointed toward the figure, but brightened once she passed. She did not stop or contact law enforcement. She relayed the incident to a co-worker the next morning, who informed a deputy. The description matched previous unconfirmed sightings. Upright posture, no visible motion, disappeared when illuminated. On December 18th, a maintenance report from the utility company documented an electrical irregularity. A transformer along the western grid recorded a voltage drop consistent with sudden drain, followed by immediate stabilization. During inspection the next day, a thin frost pattern was observed on the metal housing in a branching formation. Ambient temperature measured 5 degrees Celsius. The frost melted rapidly upon contact. No leaks, damaged insulation, or coolant issues were detected. Despite these events, the Sheriff's Department kept all missing persons cases categorized as unresolved with unknown cause. Investigators reviewed potential explanations, including hypothermia, wandering, disorientation, predation, or voluntary disappearance. None aligned with the absence of remains or lack of secondary tracks. On December 28th, a resident walking along County Road 12 at approximately 0630 reported that the environment became suddenly quiet. He noted a complete absence of wind noise and animal sounds for an estimated 10 seconds. During that period, he observed the roadside snow appear smooth, as if recently disturbed, and then reset. He did not report seeing a person or animal. He continued walking and did not call authorities. His account was later shared informally and added as a note to the deputy shift log. In early January 2023, a retired police officer living near the hollow contacted the sheriff privately. He reported observing a narrow, upright form standing near a collection of storage tanks at Oro 315. He attempted to use binoculars, but the image appeared unfocused, similar to a heat distortion effect. When he lowered the binoculars, the form was no longer present. Snow around the tanks remained undisturbed. The officer stated he did not wish to file an official report, but felt obligated to notify law enforcement. No additional disappearances were recorded during the winter months. However, deputy logs continued to document equipment irregularities, including 2 instances of GPS recalculation without obstruction, brief drops in cabin temperature, temporary dimming of headlights, localized radio interference. None of these issues resulted in service requests or investigations. By the end of January, the sheriff annotated internal maps showing all 4 disappearance locations and points of unconfirmed sightings. The clustering formed a corridor extending from the creek bed toward County Road 12. No causal theory appeared in the written record. In February 2023, Gray Hollow experienced a series of reports involving frost formation in locations not consistent with weather conditions. These incidents did not prompt emergency response, but were recorded informally by various individuals. On February 3rd, a municipal worker performing pre-dawn inspection of a maintenance yard observed frost on the interior surface of a locked equipment shed window. Outdoor temperatures measured 4 degrees Celsius. The frost appeared in 5 evenly spaced vertical lines. When the worker touched the glass, the frost melted instantly and left the window clear and dry. The worker informed a supervisor, but no work order was filed. On February 7th at 02:46, a patrol car traveling south along the frontage road recorded 2 consecutive headlight dimming events lasting 3 seconds each. The dash camera did not lose power. Audio recorded normal engine function, but no wind or background noise during the dimming. As soon as the lights returned to full brightness, ambient sound resumed. The deputy described the event as complete silence. The report was included in the patrol summary without recommendation. On February 11th, a homeowner near County Road 12 heard knocking against a rear fence. The knocks were slow, evenly spaced, and repeated 3 times. When the homeowner used a flashlight to check the yard, the fence was undisturbed. Snow showed no footprints or animal tracks. Frost marks appeared along the fence in branching streaks, later melting without residue. The homeowner did not call authorities at the time, but reported the incident to a deputy 2 days later. The account was entered into the shift log as unverified sound. A 4th incident occurred on February 15th when a wildlife researcher servicing a trail camera found that battery levels had dropped significantly, despite new installation 11 days earlier. No cold temperature readings were recorded inside the housing, and no animals had disturbed the device. The memory card contained a 5-second blackout segment at 03:17 with no indication of system reset. The researcher submitted data to his department. No analysis followed. Throughout February, livestock owners in the area noted that animals avoided certain pasture sections facing the hollow. Herd behavior showed no signs of illness or distress, only reluctance to graze near the creek. These observations were not officially filed. On February 24th at 23:09, a deputy saw a tall form near a cluster of pines. The cruiser headlights dimmed briefly while aimed at the location. The deputy's audio recording captured 3 seconds of silence. When the lights returned to full strength, nothing remained at the tree line. Snow did not show footprints. The deputy did not exit the vehicle. He documented the observation as unconfirmed figure and continued patrol. By early March, data from patrol logs, maintenance workers, and residents showed repeated patterns. Frost formation in above freezing temperatures, headlight dimming in narrow sectors of roadway, localized radio interference, short-term absence of environmental noise, unconfirmed stationary figures near the tree line, termination of footprints with no directional continuation. Despite the growing number of irregularities, no physical evidence linked the events to criminal activity. No reports indicated pursuit, violence, or property damage. There were no sightings of wildlife capable of removing bodies intact. No geological surveys identified sinkholes or unstable terrain. The sheriff's department maintained public silence, citing lack of proof. Internally, the events were tracked on a map pinned in the operations office. Points of equipment failure, unconfirmed sightings, and disappearance sites formed a pattern trending outward from the creek, extending toward County Road 12 and residential areas. No action was taken to warn the public. No restricted access was enforced. The conditions remained under observation. In late March 2023, a school district maintenance team inspected a bus depot located 3 kilometers from the edge of Gray Hollow. The crew arrived at 05:40 to check pre-route readiness. Weather conditions were dry, temperature 6 degrees Celsius. One mechanic noted frost patterns on the windshield of Bus 14, despite the vehicle being stored indoors overnight. The frost took the form of 5 narrow vertical streaks. When wiped, the streaks remained visible beneath the condensation, as if etched into a colder surface. Within minutes, the windshield normalized. No refrigeration equipment or cold drafts were present inside the depot. The anomaly was recorded in the maintenance log without follow-up. On April 2nd, a ranch dog disappeared near the pasture facing the service road. The animal was known to roam within a limited area and respond to calls. Search efforts found no tracks in the snow and no signs of struggle. The dog did not return. The owner did not file an official report, but mentioned the event to a deputy during a routine patrol. The deputy added a brief note under livestock concerns without categorizing it further. On April 9th at 02:03, a utility truck providing night surveillance of electrical lines recorded a drop in headlight intensity while stationary near the creek turnout. The onboard power gauge showed no change. At the same moment, the truck's dashboard clock stalled for 4 seconds, then resumed accurate time. Ambient audio captured no wind or environmental noise during the dimming. The incident was marked as potential voltage fluctuation, though line diagnostics later showed no irregularities. Throughout April, patrol logs documented intermittent radio issues within a confined 50-60 meter span of roadway. Signals dropped without static, scrambling, or environmental interference. Technicians attempting to reproduce the failure recorded normal transmission on every attempt. Due to lack of repetition under test conditions, no formal investigation was requested. On May 1st, a school janitor reported moisture on the gymnasium floor before dawn. The building's heating system had operated overnight, and humidity sensors registered standard levels. The moisture appeared in thin streaks aligned across the center of the floor, similar to condensation dragged by fingers. When another staff member attempted to photograph the streaks, they evaporated. The incident was described as humidity irregularity and assigned no work order. 2 days later, a resident south of County Road 12 observed a faint distortion in the air near the boundary fence at approximately 2050. The resident described the effect as a blur that moved upward and vanished. She did not report a person or animal. Snow on both sides of the fence appeared undisturbed. The account was shared informally with a neighbor who informed a deputy. The description was placed in the shift log as visual uncertainty. On May 14th at 01:22, a patrol cruiser camera recorded a brief blackout lasting 3 seconds. The timestamp advanced normally, indicating no reset. When video resumed, the camera captured frost on the roadside grass, though ambient temperature measured 7 degrees Celsius. The frost dissipated by the time deputies exited the vehicle. Snow was absent from that section of road. The footage was saved to the department archive. Despite increasing frequency of such occurrences, the sheriff's office continued to list them as non-critical. No injuries were associated with the events. Property damage was non-existent. Without confirmable evidence of criminal activity, no public advisory was issued. On May 20th, a resident reported seeing a tall, stationary figure behind his shed at approximately 04:10. When he turned on the exterior lights, the figure was gone. Frost marks were noted on the shed door in 5 evenly spaced streaks. Snow showed no tracks. The resident did not contact law enforcement directly. The information reached deputies via neighbor conversation 2 days later and was entered as possible misperception. By late May, the internal map of Gray Hollow showed increasing data points extending beyond the original search radius. The clustering suggested outward movement of irregular readings and unconfirmed sightings. No official conclusion accompanied the visual pattern. All previously missing persons remained unlocated. No clothing, devices, tools, or remains had been discovered. June 2023 marked a shift in reporting frequency. While no new disappearances were logged during the first 3 weeks, residents described increasing reluctance to use the frontage road after dark. Several accounts referenced the same conditions: sudden stillness, reduced visibility toward the tree line, and difficulty determining distance in low light. None of these observations were filed as official complaints. On June 22nd at 23:57, a deputy traveling northbound along the service corridor documented a complete loss of ambient sound. The recording captured the moment. Engine noise remained, but wind, insects, and distant traffic fell silent for approximately 9 seconds. During that period, the cruiser's interior lights flickered once. The deputy remained inside the vehicle. When sound returned, it did so instantly. The event was entered into the shift log under environmental interruption, with no follow-up requested. The following morning, a county employee performing maintenance on roadside markers observed frost across a metal signpost. Temperature stood at 12 degrees Celsius. The frost resembled thin branching lines radiating downward. When wiped with a glove, it melted instantly, leaving the surface dry. The employee documented the observation in a personal notebook but did not relay it to a supervisor. On July 1st, 2 teenagers reported seeing a tall, upright figure standing at the edge of a ball field near County Road 12 shortly after midnight. According to their account, the figure appeared motionless and faced the field. When one youth directed a phone flashlight toward the tree line, the light dimmed without warning. When the beam returned to full brightness, the figure was gone. The ground showed no tracks. Their parents informed a deputy 3 days later. The deputy recorded the statement as unverified visual report. On July 9th, a rancher discovered frost patterns inside the top panel of a metal gate. The air temperature was well above freezing. The rancher photographed the frost but later deleted the images, stating that the photos did not show enough detail to be useful. He mentioned the incident to a deputy only in conversation. The exchange produced no paperwork. During the second week of July, multiple patrol logs noted brief GPS resets occurring within a narrow radius near the creek turnout. Technicians reviewed satellite data and vehicle diagnostics. No hardware faults or signal obstructions were found. Because no navigation failures occurred outside the corridor, the resets were attributed to unknown local interference. On July 18th at 02:32, a patrol unit parked near the tree line documented rapid fogging of the forward-facing camera. The rear camera remained clear. The forward camera view blurred for 5 seconds, then regained full clarity. No precipitation was recorded. When the deputy exited the cruiser to inspect, snow patches near the turnout displayed a thin layer of frost despite ambient temperatures remaining above 10 degrees Celsius. The frost disappeared within a minute. By late July, internal department notes referenced consistent phenomena across separate reports. Frost occurring without freezing temperatures. Silence in defined areas lasting seconds at a time. Headlight dimming. GPS resets. Stationary figures disappearing without visible motion. Lack of footprints in fresh snow or soft soil. Deputies expressed concern privately, but the sheriff's office maintained no public statements. No causal explanation, technical, environmental, or criminal, was documented. In early August, a school custodian preparing classrooms for the fall term observed condensation on interior windows of the gymnasium before sunrise. 5 clear streaks cut vertically through the fogged glass, appearing colder than the surrounding pane. A co-worker watched the streaks vanish gradually from top to bottom, leaving no moisture. The incident was not reported to administration. On August 12th, a former firefighter noted that headlights on his truck dimmed twice while passing the frontage road. He described a pressure drop in the cabin, similar to descending in an aircraft. Ambient noise ceased for several seconds. Once the headlights returned to normal strength, the silence ended. The driver continued home and did not file a report. The next day, he informed a deputy only when asked about unrelated matters. Despite growing consistency among witness accounts, no physical evidence remained after each event. The sheriff's office retained all missing persons cases as unresolved with unknown cause. No search operations resumed. The pattern continued outward from the initial disappearance zone. In the final weeks of August 2023, the pattern at Gray Hollow began to shift. Until this point, all confirmed disappearances occurred within dense forest or along unlit service roads. But on August 24th, the sheriff's office received a report from a residential cul-de-sac located nearly 2 kilometers beyond the original boundary. At 2118, a homeowner called dispatch stating that someone was standing at the edge of his driveway, near the mailbox. He described the figure as tall, unmoving, and positioned just outside the reach of the porch light. When the homeowner switched on a brighter exterior lamp, the light flickered once and returned to full brightness. The figure was no longer present. Deputies arrived at 2134 and found no footprints in the grass or gravel. The homeowner declined to make a formal statement, but asked whether the department had received similar calls. Deputies did not provide information. At 2207, the same night, a family driving home along County Road 12 reported heavy dimming of headlights for several seconds. According to their statement, the interior lights faded as well, though the engine remained steady. Their dashboard clock stalled and then resumed correct time. The family did not see a figure or animal. They did note that the night felt unnaturally quiet. After debating whether to contact authorities, they eventually relayed the event to a neighbor, who passed it along to a deputy the following morning. On August 29th, a maintenance worker inspecting a small pumping station east of the hollow reported frost forming on the metal railing outside the structure. Air temperature measured 14 degrees Celsius. No shade or cold source was present. The frost remained visible for nearly 2 minutes and vanished without melting residue. The worker photographed the anomaly, but when he attempted to view the images on his phone, the screen displayed corrupted files with blank previews. Later that day, the photos appeared normal. No one requested analysis. September brought the first cluster of visual sightings within a populated area. On September 6th at Oro 140, 2 residents living on opposite ends of a short street reported seeing a tall figure near the sidewalk. Neither witness saw the figure move. One claimed headlights dimmed as his car approached. The other, watching from a window, saw the figure fade into shadow without walking. Snow in that area was minimal, and the grass showed no compression. Deputies logged both accounts as unverified. On September 11th, a security camera outside a grocery store recorded a brief blackout lasting 5 seconds. The device did not reboot. Footage resumed instantly and displayed a thin patch of frost on the asphalt beneath a lamppost. Ambient temperature was documented at 10 degrees Celsius. By the time store staff stepped outside, nothing remained. The incident was marked as camera malfunction. Throughout September, internal logs show deputies began driving the hollow perimeter on slower circuits, often pausing with headlights off. None of these movements appeared in public records. Patrol cars remained stationed near the creek turnout during early morning hours, though no one reported stopping hikers, issuing warnings, or redirecting traffic. A deputy later wrote privately that the perimeter felt as if something was pushing outward, though this note never entered the official case file. During the final week of September, a 5th disappearance occurred. Unlike the earlier cases, this one happened in full proximity to homes. On September 30th, at approximately 1855, a 54-year-old postal driver parked his truck outside a residence to deliver a package requiring adult signature. He left the engine running. The homeowner opened the door moments later, signing paperwork. According to the homeowner, the driver turned toward his vehicle to retrieve a receipt pad. He walked 2 steps across the driveway. Then he was no longer visible. The truck remained running, driver's door open. The homeowner called his name and stepped outside. There were no footprints on the pavement, lawn, or gravel. No sound, motion, or sign of distress. The entire event lasted under 10 seconds. Deputies responded within 9 minutes. The truck idled normally. Headlights and interior lights were on. No personal items were missing from the cab. The handheld scanner sat on the passenger seat. The package log on the dashboard still displayed the last completed entry. A K9 unit tracked scent through the driveway and lost it near the rear bumper. Beyond that point, Nothing. No neighbors saw a person leave the area. No surveillance cameras captured movement. Nothing was taken. No evidence of abduction or forced entry existed. The driver simply did not return. This disappearance marked the first case to occur directly inside a residential neighborhood. It also marked the first time equipment anomalies appeared within minutes of the event. Patrol radio interference and brief dimming of cruiser headlights captured on dash video. By official record, the driver became the fifth missing person linked geographically to Gray Hollow. Like the others, he left no trace. After the postal driver's disappearance, the sheriff's office conducted a wider sweep than in previous cases. Patrol cars circulated through neighborhood streets, service roads, and the hollow boundary for several hours. No physical evidence emerged. No clothing, tools, footprints, or dropped equipment were found. At 21:44, a deputy attempting to radio dispatch experienced two brief failures. The recording shows clear transmission, a sudden 3-second absence of signal, then full restoration. This occurred twice within the same 30-meter stretch. The cruiser dash camera remained operational, yet headlights dimmed once for approximately 1 second. The deputy noted no precipitation, wind, or power fluctuations in the surrounding homes. The following morning, investigators collected statements from neighbors. One man reported opening his garage door at roughly the same time and seeing a faint blur near a tree line bordering the subdivision. He described it as a vertical, dull shape that did not resemble a person or animal and shimmered slightly, as if heat distortion were present. When he stepped forward for a clearer view, nothing remained. He did not initially consider the event suspicious and only mentioned it when approached by deputies. Another resident reported hearing a single knock against her fence at about 19 Orkerstown the same evening. The knock repeated twice, evenly spaced. When she looked outside, she saw no one. Snow on the ground near the fence had a thin frosted sheen that melted within seconds. She assumed it was weather-related and did not contact authorities. Investigators canvassed the area for security footage. One home camera pointed toward the street recorded a 6-second blackout at 18:56, immediately before the homeowner signed for the package. The timestamp advanced normally. The device did not reboot. When video resumed, the street appeared unchanged. The footage captured the postal truck, the homeowner, and the front walkway. The driver was not visible. No motion blur or exit path appeared. The recording was submitted into evidence. A thermal camera positioned on a neighboring porch had no blackout. However, during the same window of time, it recorded an abrupt temperature drop, approximately 11 degrees Celsius, for less than 2 seconds. The drop affected only a narrow strip of pavement near the rear of the postal truck. The camera registered no human or animal heat signatures leaving the area. The disappearance was classified as a missing person with unknown cause. Law enforcement requested voluntary statements, but issued no public warning. Patrol presence in residential streets increased quietly for several days, though residents were not informed of a reason. In the following week, 5 new reports reached deputies, each unverified, but all consistent with prior patterns. Frost on windows before sunrise despite mild air. 3 evenly spaced knocks on siding or fences. Temporary dimming of headlights in driveways. Brief loss of environmental sound. Tall stationary shapes near property lines. None of these reports contained photographs, tracks, or video capturing a subject clearly. Deputies logged them as unconfirmed observations. By mid-October, the internal incident map showed 4 distinct clusters: the creek turnout, the service corridor, County Road 12, and now the residential cul-de-sac. The clusters formed a gradual outward arc. Each point shared overlapping characteristics: equipment disruption, silence, frost without freezing temperatures, and termination of movement without trace. On October 17th, a utility crew inspecting a transformer near the subdivision documented magnetic irregularities in the steel housing. Temperature at ground level measured 12 degrees Celsius, yet frost formed for 30 seconds before dissipating. The crew attempted thermal imaging, but the device displayed a blank screen during the frost and resumed function afterward. The anomaly was saved in the maintenance log without escalation. Despite the expanding radius of events, officials maintained the same explanation: no evidence of crime, no evidence of predator activity, and no bodies recovered. Without a physical cause, they argued, there could be no public advisory. Internally, shift logs reflected a different tone. One deputy wrote that the area didn't feel empty, only quiet. Another noted that radios seemed to fail most often where sound also dropped. Neither note entered the official case file. No additional disappearances were recorded for the next 3 weeks, but the pattern continued. Early November 2023 brought colder weather, though temperatures remained above freezing on most nights. Yet frost continued appearing in locations inconsistent with conditions. Reports increased, not in frequency, but in proximity to occupied homes. On November 3rd at 0051, a resident reported that his motion lights activated twice without visible movement. When he stepped onto the porch, he noticed thin frost lines across the patio railing. The air temperature measured 9 degrees Celsius. Frost melted rapidly without leaving moisture. His dog, normally calm, refused to step outside. The resident considered contacting animal control, but decided against it. 2 days later, a deputy driving the frontage road captured a brief camera fogging event. The forward dash camera blurred for 3 seconds, while the rear camera remained clear. During the fogging, audio recorded no wind, no tire noise, and no insects. The cruiser continued moving at a steady speed. When the camera regained focus, the deputy noted a subtle haze drifting across the tree line, though nothing showed on video. On November 7th, a couple returning from a late dinner saw a tall, dark shape near a lamppost in their subdivision. Their vehicle headlights dimmed as they approached, then flickered back to full brightness. When they reached the lamppost, only undisturbed frost remained on the sidewalk. They mentioned the incident to a deputy the next day. Their description matched numerous previous accounts: upright form, no visible movement, disappearance without directional travel. That same week, a school bus camera filmed a 9-second audio dropout as students boarded in the early morning. The timestamp progressed normally, and the camera did not lose video. The footage showed a slight shimmer near the rear of the bus, similar to heat distortion. The driver did not notice anything unusual. The recording was archived automatically. On November 12th at 0240, a deputy stopped near the creek turnout to inspect a suspicious noise. According to his written report, the forest became silent. The cruiser's engine sounded muffled, as if the air itself absorbed the noise. He stepped out of the vehicle and stood in complete stillness for several seconds. The trees did not move. When ambient sound returned, it did so abruptly. The deputy re-entered his vehicle and continued patrol without further inspection. During the second half of November, deputies continued receiving unverified reports of figures near yards, alleys, and roadside pull-offs. Witnesses rarely filed formal statements. Many preferred to mention the incidents informally, often concluding with the same explanation. They didn't want to sound unreasonable. On November 26th, a fourth livestock animal vanished from the pasture bordering the hollow. Fresh snow showed no tracks leading in or out. A thin band of frost covered the top rail of the pasture gate, melting in seconds when handled. The owner informed deputies, who logged the loss as unexplained livestock disappearance. No prints, blood, or broken fencing were found. The sheriff's office reviewed all 5 human disappearances and accompanying irregular reports. No shared background, occupation, or social connection linked the missing individuals. Each vanished in a different setting: forest path, roadside, pasture boundary, workshop, residential driveway. None left physical evidence. By early December, the department quietly consulted the state search and rescue coordinator. The request was informal. The sheriff did not ask for a new search operation, only for guidance on documenting unexplained environmental anomalies. freezing without cold, silence without wind, disappearances without trails. The coordinator responded that without bodies, crime scenes, or measurable hazard, there was no procedural basis for intervention. Local media covered none of the events. No reporter connected the disappearances. Families grieved privately. Most residents stopped walking alone after dark. Some refused to drive the frontage road at night, though they gave no official reason. Through all available records, one pattern remained constant. Every incident occurred within a widening arc radiating outward from Gray Hollow's Creek corridor. And early in December, the pattern advanced again. On December 4, 2023, a delivery van approached the southern edge of the subdivision at 1812. The driver later reported that the headlights dimmed twice as the vehicle neared the final turn. The dashboard clock gained 3 minutes, then corrected itself without driver input. The driver continued to the destination address and completed the drop-off. He did not witness a figure or hear unusual sounds. However, when he returned to the van, the windshield displayed 5 vertical frost streaks that vanished within seconds. Air temperature measured 7 degrees Celsius. The delivery company did not notify authorities. Later that week, on December 8th, a resident walking her dog before sunrise observed a motionless shape between 2 neighboring houses. She described it as tall, upright, and featureless, standing just beyond the reach of the streetlight. When she raised her phone to take a picture, the streetlight flickered. The dog pulled in the opposite direction, displaying visible fear. After the flicker, nothing remained in the space between the houses. Snow on the lawn showed no compression or tracks. She returned home and did not contact law enforcement. The account reached deputies through her neighbor several days later. On December 14th at 01:19, a deputy parked near the creek turnout to check equipment logs. During a routine radio check, the transmission failed mid-sentence. The audio recording captured a sudden drop into silence. The cruiser headlights dimmed for 4 seconds. A thin frost layer spread across the windshield despite interior heat. When the deputy wiped the glass, the frost melted instantly and left the surface dry. By 01:22, all systems returned to normal. The deputy remained on scene for several minutes and recorded the time, coordinates, and temperature. The report listed the event as equipment interference and environmental anomaly. 3 days later, a maintenance worker checking pump controls near the hollow noticed frost along the inside of a metal railing. As he examined the frost, he heard 3 slow knocks on the pump housing, loud enough to be deliberate, but evenly spaced. When he walked around the unit, he saw no person, no animal, and no sign of disturbance. Snow on the ground was untouched. He noted slight fogging at the edges of his flashlight beam, as though light were passing through colder air. The worker reported the incident to a supervisor, who logged it as structural reverberation. On December 22nd, a homeowner near County Road 12 discovered frost streaks on the inside of his kitchen window. 5 vertical lines, evenly spaced, identical in length. When he touched them, the frost melted instantly, leaving no condensation. Exterior temperature measured 5 degrees Celsius. The homeowner stepped outside to inspect the yard, but found nothing unusual. Snow remained smooth. He told a deputy the next day. The account was annotated with other frost irregularities. On December 29th at 20:06, a resident driving home saw a tall figure standing under a streetlight. He described the shape as upright, motionless, and darker than the surrounding pavement. As he approached, his headlights dimmed, and a complete absence of sound filled the cabin. The figure did not move. When the lights returned to full brightness, the space under the streetlight was empty. The resident drove home without stopping. This sighting, like the others, produced no footprints, no prints on nearby frost, and no human trace. Law enforcement recorded the statement as an unconfirmed visual. On January 3, 2024, a county snowplow operator traveling near the service corridor noticed his headlights dim for nearly 5 seconds. During the dimming, his plow sensors reported a false obstruction signal. an alert that normally triggers only when the blade encounters solid material. The alert cleared the moment the headlights returned to full strength. When the operator stepped out to inspect, he found no debris, no ice, and no uneven ground. Snow behind the plow displayed smooth surface with no drag marks. Temperature recorded at -1°C, consistent with conditions. The operator informed his supervisor, who noted the incident. Across all these December and early January reports, several elements remained consistent. Sudden loss of environmental sound. Headlight dimming without electrical fault. Frost streaks appearing in above freezing temperatures. Stationary figures disappearing without movement. Equipment recording silence or blank frames. Absence of footprints, drag patterns, or heat signatures. None of these events resulted in injury or property damage. Without a definable threat, departments avoided public warnings. The sheriff's office continued unmarked patrols, often parking with no lights near the creek turnout, observing without engagement. By mid-January, families in the subdivision quietly changed habits. People brought pets indoors before dark. Residents avoided late walks. Conversations grew cautious, but not loud enough to draw county attention. And then, on January 17th, a sixth disappearance occurred. This one did not happen on a road, or in the forest, or at a workshop. It happened inside a house. The sixth disappearance took place on January 17th, 2024, inside a single-family home, less than 3 kilometers from the original Keller incident site. The missing individual was Diane Hartman, age 46, an office coordinator who lived with her husband and teenage daughter. Temperatures outside measured -2°C. Snow lay across the yard in clean, uninterrupted layers. According to the husband's statement, Diane left the living room at approximately 21:14 to retrieve laundry from the basement. She carried a basket and descended the stairs. When several minutes passed without her returning, he called for her. Receiving no response, he walked to the basement door and looked down the stairwell. No lights were on. The basket was halfway down the steps, resting on its side. The basement was silent. He turned on the lights and descended. The basement floor was undisturbed. No glass was broken. No windows or doors were open. The snow outside those windows remained smooth, without prints. The furnace ran normally. The interior temperature was stable. He searched each room. Diane was not present. The exterior doors were locked from the inside. Nothing missing. Nothing moved. No overturned furniture. No sign of struggle. No sign of an intruder. He dialed 911 at 21:28. Deputies arrived at 21:41. They secured the residence and conducted a full walkthrough. The floors had thin frost patterns on certain hard surfaces, including the washer lid and the metal handrail of the stairs. 5 streaks on the washer, 5 on the rail. Temperature inside the basement measured 9°C, several degrees colder than the rest of the house. Within minutes of deputies entering, the frost melted, leaving surfaces perfectly dry. The family's dog refused to come down the stairs, barking at the threshold and pacing. Deputies removed the dog from the room to prevent contamination of potential tracks. None were found. Investigators dusted for prints, none beyond household residents. No sign of forced entry, no broken locks, no hidden exits. The snow outside every access point remained undisturbed. Camera footage from the home security system captured nothing unusual. No entry, no exit. The basement feed recorded a 5-second blackout at 21:15. Timestamp advanced correctly. When video resumed, the room was unchanged. The sheriff's department brought in a K9 unit. The dog tracked Diane's scent strongly from the living room to the top of the basement stairs, then to the 3rd step, where the laundry basket had come to rest, and stopped. The scent did not continue into the basement. It did not move toward a door or window. The trail ended on the stair. The event was logged as a missing person with unknown cause. Despite occurring indoors, there was no evidence of a medical event, no signs of self-harm, no record of mental health issues, no reason to leave the home. Her phone remained on the kitchen counter. Keys were placed in their usual bowl by the door. Wallet untouched. That night, deputies remained outside the residence until nearly 03 Dogwows. During that time, they recorded brief radio static and a sudden drop in temperature along the backyard fence. Frost formed on the top rail, despite air above freezing. The frost melted when touched. Snow in the yard displayed no compression. No neighbors heard or saw anything. No vehicles passed. No suspicious activity was reported in the entire subdivision. By the next day, the sheriff's office quietly expanded internal patrol boundaries. Units were now moving beyond the Creek Corridor and County Road 12, sweeping residential streets and cul-de-sacs. These patrols were never announced publicly. They appeared only as vague entries in shift logs. Over the next 6 days, deputies documented 2 new headlight dimming incidents, a case of frost forming inside a closed shed, 3 reports of knocking on fences with no source, a stationary shape observed near a streetlight that vanished when approached, loss of ambient sound for several seconds at a time. None of these warranted official reports. None contained evidence. With 6 confirmed disappearances, no bodies, no footprints, no suspects, and no natural explanation, Gray Hollow remained open land. Residents continued living beside it. No agency declared a hazard. No news reached surrounding counties. Only the map kept inside the sheriff's office told the story. The corridor that began at the creek had now reached living rooms. The months that followed were marked by silence, both literal and administrative. February and March of 2024 brought no new disappearances. No one filed official complaints. And yet, the sheriff's internal data continued to grow. Deputies patrolling before dawn still marked the same anomalies: headlights dimming, short-lived frost on metal surfaces, unexplained silence, stationary shapes near tree lines, GPS resets without obstruction, radio failure in narrow corridors. These incidents never occurred in every patrol. Only some. Only in specific places. And never with predictable timing. One deputy, in an informal note, wrote that the forest felt as if it was watching. The comment was crossed out before the log was archived. In April, a communications technician attempted to perform extended diagnostics along the frontage road. He parked a county van near the Old Creek turnout and activated a handheld spectrum analyzer. The device recorded a brief signal void, a gap rather than interference. During the void, environmental microphones captured nothing. Not wind, not insects, not distant traffic. For 5 seconds, the instruments recorded perfect silence. When sound returned, it did so mid-breath, as if time between noises had been removed. The technician saved the file. It was never entered into public documentation. Later that month, a wildlife researcher monitoring trail counters found a full battery drained to 0, despite temperatures above freezing and no device malfunction. The data card contained a 10-second blackout with normal timestamp progression. When the researcher replaced the battery, the device resumed normal function. In early May, a deputy parked near the service road reported a shape standing between 2 trees at approximately 02:58. The figure remained still for several seconds. When the deputy switched on the cruiser spotlight, the beam dimmed abruptly. When it returned to full strength, the space between the trees was empty. Snow beneath the branches remained perfectly smooth. By summer, the map inside the sheriff's office showed the same convergence: disappearances with no exit path, equipment malfunctions without mechanical cause, frost forming in above freezing temperatures, and silence lasting longer each month. Residents adapted without acknowledging why. Porch lights stayed on longer. Pets rarely roamed outdoors after dark. Children no longer cut through the woods on their way home. No one made statements. No one sought reporters. In a quiet way, the community behaved as if something unseen lived beside them. In August 2024, a single entry appeared in the internal shift log. Knocking at the fence, 3 taps, even spacing. No prints. Nothing followed that line. No patrol car number, no location, no deputy's name. And there are no further notes. No closure, no suspects, no recovered remains. Just a widening of space where people vanish and nothing left behind. The sheriff's office has never issued a public warning. The creek turnout is still open. County Road 12 remains a common route. The subdivision continues to grow. If you travel this region, you might notice nothing. Cars pass daily. The forest looks ordinary. The houses are quiet. The roads are clear. But every so often, headlights dim without reason. Radios fall silent in mid-sentence. Snow sits smooth where footprints should be. And someone, somewhere in that arc of country, might look toward the tree line and see a tall, motionless shape watching from the dark. No footprints, no movement, no sound. Just gone. If you have thoughts about what might be happening in Gray Hollow, or theories about where these people went, you are welcome to share them. Observers help keep records alive, and discussion keeps these cases from disappearing the way the people did. Thank you for listening through the full investigation. For those who follow Unexplained Incidents, supporting the work by commenting, sharing, and following helps ensure new cases are documented, not forgotten.